All right, welcome to Rapid Fire Manufacturing. Today I'm with Melissa Buie. She is a dynamic force in manufacturing and continuous improvement. She has a PhD in nuclear engineering and years of experience leading lean transformation. She combines technical expertise and a deep commitment to building strong, people-centered cultures. Right now, she's helping people across manufacturing, and I'm super grateful to have her on the show today. Melissa, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, David. I've been following this show and really enjoying it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I want to start off with, how did you get into manufacturing and maybe the story behind that?
Okay, well, so I ended up in manufacturing very almost on a fluke, really. So I started my career doing really R&D and at the Naval Research Lab, and then moved into the semiconductor industry, and I was an engineering manager, and then ended up going off on my own with some friends from graduate school and really trying to develop a product that could be useful in the semiconductor industry. And with a plasma diagnostic tool, developing that. Everybody's got to have a big failure in their career, and that was one for me. So then I started looking around for jobs, and there was a manufacturing engineering manager position that was open. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And that was the beginning. And then that was it. I've always stayed in manufacturing since because I love it.
That's what I usually find too. When people stumble into it, they end up staying because they love it. So that's awesome to hear. Now,
Yes.
so you started off at the Naval, was it the Research Academy?
Naval Research Lab. Yes.
Research Lab. Okay. So then how did your career evolve from that?
So at the Naval Research Lab, I was working on really doing atomic physics type work for future lasers of the future. And then I got into the semiconductor industry, and I was started out developing processes for a new product that we were developing. So I was doing dielectric etch application development, and then moved into actual chamber development and creating the plasmas. And then when I ran into my buddies from that really were working on a plasma diagnostic tool that would have been a great tool for the semiconductor industry. I was like, and this went back to my PhD research. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna go do this. And we gave it a shot. We gave it a really good shot, and ended up with some patents and all this kind of stuff. But it just, at the time, it was not ready. So the industry wasn't ready. So I then went to Coherent as a manufacturing engineering manager, started out there. That's when, the big difference, David, between R&D engineering and manufacturing engineering is that in R&D, you do it once. You build it once, you throw it over the fence, right? You've shown that it's feasible. In manufacturing, you've got to do it the same way over and over and over and over every day. And it was a whole new set of challenges. And then there were a whole bunch of people that, that I needed to start working with, a whole different group of people. So I loved that. And I spent most of my career at Coherent, 15 years, I think it may have been longer. And then I did a short stint at Lam Research back in the semiconductor industry, and just have fallen in love with, throughout that process, really kind of fallen in love with Lean Six Sigma and working with people to really make processes better and drive continuous improvement. So yeah.
So that's awesome. So how was the difference? So it's like you almost went from product development to people and process development. So how was that, I guess, different working between the two? You know, like products, I feel like are maybe not, I shouldn't say easier to manage, but you don't have to deal with people kind of stuck in their ways, right? And trying to change an entire process.
Yes. Well, so in some ways you're right. It was a lot easier, right? There was no with product development, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of people interaction stuff that you have to deal with. There's some, right? But not a lot. It's go off, develop this, make it work. They're throwing over the specs to you and you just say, okay, got it. I'm going to go try to make this work. And with manufacturing, you're dealing with so many other variables in addition to making the product work. You got to make it work every day and make sure that you've got good equipment and tools so that it's repeatable and reproducible and it will continue to perform. And then you've got a whole bunch of different people from different backgrounds who are building it. And so you've got to make sure that they're familiar with everything that's important in the process. So yes, it was a whole new set of challenges. And it turns out that I kind of enjoyed all those new challenges. I didn't think I would. I was like, well, I kind of like being in my lab by myself and not really having to interact with people. But I fell in love with all the people who were doing manufacturing, who were in operations, and it was like this whole new world opened up for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. And now, what inspired you to write your book? I wanted to talk about that a little bit, maybe give a shout out to that and an opportunity for people to read that.
Okay, well, so I've got two books. So the first
Two
one
books. Oh, okay.
that's published already is Problem Solving for New Engineers, and that really came out of manufacturing. So what I realized as a manufacturing engineering manager, hiring new college graduates or new engineers, new people in their career, is that our university education, there's not enough time not enough hours in the curriculum to be able to allow them to just have like full access to labs and experiment and problem solve the way we want them to do in industry. What I wanted to do with problem solving for new engineers was give them like a few tools that would allow them to be successful in problem solving. So it's kind of that bridge between, okay, if you're a chef in the kitchen, right? Here's a cookbook to follow. So you're not quite full chef uniform designing and creating recipes, but here's a few tools that allow you to be more successful in problem solving. And so one of the big things is really about variation, is understanding where variation comes from, and that every process has variation, natural variation, that's a part of it. And then there's all these other sources of variation that can come in. And so understanding that is really key to having a successful manufacturing process. And a lot of times we don't verbalize it that way when we're talking about manufacturing, but I wanted to get something on paper so that people could really start, as they're starting their manufacturing engineering careers, as they're starting their engineering careers, right? That they would have access to some tools that would allow them to be more successful faster. So
I like
that was
that.
number
And actually,
one.
yeah, that's number one. Okay. So
Yes.
problem solving for new engineers. Okay. And
Yeah.
number
And
two, what is that?
number two is it's called Faceplant: Free Yourself from Failure's Funk, which is really hard to say, but and this is really, it's really out of my love for experimentation. So one of the things that I realized is I was perfectly happy to fail in the lab because I knew if I failed in the lab, I was running an experiment and I would study the results and I would build a model and I'd create something that would allow me to learn where to go next with my experimentation. But I started looking at other areas of my life and I realized, wait. I don't want to fail in those but we get messages every day from thought leaders and from, the Silicon Valley entrepreneurs that tell us, fail fast, fail forward, fail often. All this stuff about failure is so great, but none of it acknowledges like all the yuckiness that we feel personally when we fail. And so I took some time, about 2 years actually, working with a few colleagues to study what was going on. Why was it okay for me to fail in the lab? But when I'm learning French, I'm not even going to say a word to you in French, even though I've studied it for a year, because I'm afraid of failing and I'm afraid that I'm going to sound awful. So, how do we get past those? How do we get past that? And so, this book is really, Faceplant is about how we can do that, how we can bring that experimental attitude and learn and grow from our failures and just be free to fail in every area of our life.
I love that. So it's a mindset shift that almost everything is sort of an experiment. You got to look at
Right,
it that way, and then you
right.
don't associate it with some of those negative feelings, right?
Yes, that's totally it. It's let's treat life like a big experiment. So I have started just embracing all kinds of, well, I'm just going to treat that like an experiment. Great.
I
And
love that.
okay, so that didn't work, but then I've got these practices that I can do, these tools that allow me to examine that and then still learn and grow from it. So then I'm like, well, it helps minimize. It doesn't mean that it gets rid of the yucky feelings, right? The yuckiness
Hmm.
may still be there, but at least for me now, it doesn't last quite as long and I don't have to keep hanging on to it for quite so long.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference too, because when you're able to identify why you have those yucky feelings, it makes it easier and you get over them quicker. But when they're just kind of lingering and you're like, oh, I don't know why, yeah, that's more difficult for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
was this the book that, were you signing this book at AME last year?
I mean,
Or no,
no,
you were
it would
helping
have been,
someone.
Faceplant doesn't come out until November of this year.
Oh, okay. So we got a sneak peek into the book. Awesome. I
Yes.
like that.
Yes, it's available on Amazon. I'll do a little plug here. It's available on Amazon to pre-order, but it won't be available until it's great for Christmas presents this year.
I will definitely be ordering some, so I appreciate that. So I do see we are out of time, Melissa. Thank you so much for everything you're doing in the industry. For those of you interested, check out AME. It is a great organization to join. I know Melissa has a lot of involvement with them, but yeah, really good opportunities there to network and to the food there last year was that alone. was awesome. Thank you so
Yes,
much, Melissa.
thank you.